The alien called it unreal metal. She grinned. Damascus, my uncle makes it for fun. An HFY story in 3 parts. Part 1, the assessment. Commander had seen many things in her 300 years of service to the Galactic Metallurgical Institute. She had watched the perfect their crystal-bonded titanium. She had studied the ancient forges of where masters shaped alloys using methods passed down for 10,000 generations. She had cataloged metals from 97 different species across 12 star systems, and she had grown very, very tired of being surprised. Humans, she was certain, would not surprise her. Her shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere toward their orbital station. Beside her, her assistant, a nervous young with too many questions, was reading from his. Commander, the records show that humans achieved stable only 200 years ago. Their industrial metallurgy is approximately 3 centuries behind galactic standards. They still use chemical fuel for some of their smaller vehicles. I am aware, said. Her voice was flat. She had reviewed these files already 3 times. They are candidates for provisional membership in the artisan caste, low tier, basic assessment only. Yes, Commander, paused. But why did the council send you? You are the senior assessor. Surely someone else could. Because the council believes in being thorough. Did not add that she had requested this assignment herself. She did not explain that she had grown bored with the usual candidates, with their predictable presentations and their careful samples. Humans were new. They were strange. Their planet was strange. Perhaps, she had thought, they would be interesting. She was already beginning to doubt that. The docking bay was clean and functional. The humans who greeted them were polite and organized. They led and through a series of corridors to a demonstration chamber, where a long table had been arranged with samples. Walked slowly past the displays. Titanium alloys, carbon composites, some interesting work with aluminum matrices, nothing remarkable, nothing she had not seen before done better by species with longer histories. She picked up a sample of their best steel. She ran her scanner over it. The readings were acceptable. The molecular structure was sound. The carbon content was within expected parameters. This is adequate, she said. The human representative, a tall man with gray hair and a careful smile, nodded. Thank you, Commander. We have worked hard to meet galactic standards. You have met them, barely. Set the sample down. Is this everything? There was a moment of silence. The humans looked at each other. Then a young woman stepped forward from the back of the room. She was small, with dark hair and quick eyes, and she was carrying something wrapped in cloth. Commander, she said, my name is Maya. I'm an engineer here. I wanted to show you something that isn't from our industrial labs. Raised one of her sensory ridges. Not from your labs. No, ma'am, Maya smiled. It was a strange smile, not nervous, not proud, but something else. Something could not quite identify. It's from my uncle's workshop, in Vermont. That's a place on Earth. I know what Vermont is, lied. She gestured impatiently. Show me. Maya unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a knife. Had seen many knives. She had seen blades forged in the heart of dying stars, blades folded with nanoscale precision by machines that could count individual atoms. She had seen ceremonial weapons and practical tools and everything in between. She had never seen anything like this. The blade caught the light, and the light moved. Patterns flowed across the steel like water, like waves frozen in the moment before breaking. Dark lines and bright lines twisted together in layers, hundreds of them, thousands, each one distinct and yet part of the whole. The metal seemed to shift as she watched it, as if it were alive, as if it were breathing. Scanner beeped. She looked at the readings. She looked again. She adjusted the calibration and scanned a 3rd time. The readings made no sense. She said quietly, "Come here." Her assistant hurried over. His eyes went wide when he saw the blade. "Commander, what?" "Scan it." He did. His scanner also beeped. He shook it. He scanned again. "The molecular structure," he whispered. "It's impossible. There are thousands of layers, carbide formations in patterns I've never seen. The database has no match." Picked up the knife. It was heavier than she expected, and the balance was perfect. She turned it slowly, watching the patterns dance. "Unreal metal," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. It was a designation she had used only twice in her career, once for a masterwork that had taken 3 generations to create, and once for an artifact so old that no one remembered who had made it. The term meant material that known metallurgical science, material that should not exist. Maya was still smiling that strange smile. "We call it Damascus," she said. "Damascus," repeated. The word felt strange in her mouth. "What is Damascus?" "It's a type of steel, a very old type." Maya's smile grew wider. "My uncle makes it for fun." Stared at her. "For fun?" "Yes, ma'am, in his workshop, behind his farmhouse. He's retired now. He used to fix cars. That's a type of ground vehicle. He started making knives about 10 years ago because he was bored." Made a small sound, ignored him. "You are telling me," she said slowly, "that a retired vehicle mechanic created unreal metal in his personal workshop because he was bored." "That's correct." "For fun?" "Yes, ma'am." Set down the knife. She took a long breath. In 300 years, she had learned to control her reactions, to remain calm in the face of the unexpected. But this was not the unexpected. This was the impossible. "I need to see this workshop," she said. Maya grinned. Part 2, the investigation. The shuttle descended through clouds and rain toward a place called Vermont. Watched the landscape scroll past beneath them. Green forests, small towns, roads that curved between hills. It looked nothing like the orbital station. It looked nothing like any industrial center she had visited. "Where exactly are we going?" asked nervously. "My uncle's farm," Maya said. She was sitting across from them, completely relaxed. "It's about 20 minutes from here." "A farm?" Looked at his. "I don't understand." The scanner readings indicated molecular assembly at the nanoscale level. That requires precision equipment worth billions of credits. How can a farm? Said quietly, "Stop talking." He stopped. The shuttle landed in a field beside a white farmhouse. The house was old but well kept, with a porch that wrapped around 2 sides and flowers growing in boxes under the windows. Behind it stood a large building with metal walls, a barn, perhaps, or a garage. A man walked out of the building as they approached. He was older, maybe 60 years in human terms, with gray hair and strong arms and a leather apron covered in dark stains. He was holding a cup of something that steamed in the cool air. "Uncle," Maya called out, "I brought visitors." The man looked at them without surprise. "The aliens." "Yes." "Okay." He took a sip from his cup. "You want coffee?" Did not know what coffee was, but she recognized hospitality when she saw it. "No, thank you. I want to see your forge." Shrugged and led them inside. The building was not what had expected. She had imagined, what? Hidden technology, perhaps. Secret machines disguised as primitive equipment. Some explanation for the impossible material she had held in her hands. Instead, she found a workshop. There was a forge in the center, a simple thing, brick and steel, with a bed of black coals that glowed faintly orange. Beside it stood an anvil, its surface from years of use. There was a press of some kind, heavy and hydraulic, and racks of tools hanging from the walls. Hammers of different sizes, tongs, files, grinding wheels. Everything was old and worn and covered in a fine layer of dust. Walked slowly through the space, scanning everything. The readings were exactly what they appeared to be. Iron, steel, carbon, no exotic elements, no hidden technology, nothing that should not be there. "This is where you made the knife," she said. "Yep," set down his coffee and wiped his hands on his apron. "That one took about 3 days. The pattern was tricky." 3 days? Turned to face him. "The molecular structure of that blade would require our most advanced facilities to replicate. The process would take months, and you made it in 3 days." "Well, I've been doing this for a while now," scratched his chin. "When I started, it took longer." "How?" The word came out sharper than intended. "How is this possible?" Looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded toward the forge. You want me to show you? Yes. He walked to a shelf and took down several pieces of metal, thin bars, different colors, different types. This is 1095 high-carbon steel, he said, holding up a dark piece. And this is 15N20. It's got nickel in it. When you etch the finished blade, the nickel resists the acid. That's what makes the pattern show up. He stacked the bars together, alternating types, until he had a small tower of metal. Then he put the stack into the forge and began working the bellows. The trick is temperature, he said. You got to get it hot enough that the metals weld together, but not so hot that you burn the carbon out. Too cold and the layers won't stick. Too hot and you ruin everything. How do you know when the temperature is correct? Asked. He had forgotten his nervousness and was watching with fascination. Glanced at him. The color tells me. The color? Yeah, watch. The metal was beginning to glow now, orange shifting toward yellow. Watched it carefully. See how it's getting brighter. When it hits that yellow-white color, that's when you pull it. What instruments do you use to measure the exact temperature? Laughed. It was a short, surprised laugh. I use my eyes, son, same as my grandfather did. He pulled the glowing metal from the forge and set it on the anvil. Then he picked up a hammer and began to strike. The blows were steady and precise, each one landing exactly where he intended. Under his hands, the stack of metal began to flatten and spread. Now I fold it, he said. He cut the flattened metal in half, stacked the halves, and put it back in the forge. Every time I fold, I double the layers. Start with 7 layers, fold it 10 times, you got over 7,000 layers. 7,000, said quietly. Give or take, shrugged. Some guys do more. There's no right number. You just keep folding until it feels right. Until it feels right, repeated. He was typing rapidly on his running calculations. Commander, to replicate this process artificially would require molecular assembly technology approximately 3 centuries beyond current galactic standards. Did not respond. She was watching work. He had pulled the metal from the forge again and was hammering it flat, preparing for another fold. His movements were smooth and certain. He did not check any instruments. He did not consult any computers. He simply worked, guided by knowledge that seemed to live in his hands. How did you learn this? She asked. Paused in his hammering. YouTube mostly. What is YouTube? It's a website. People post videos. I watched a lot of videos about blacksmithing when I retired. Read some books too, old books from libraries. He resumed hammering. The technique isn't new, you know. Humans have been making Damascus steel for over 1,000 years. His translator must have malfunctioned. 1,000 years. Yeah, maybe longer. The original method was lost for a while, couple hundred years. Nobody knew how to do it. Then people figured it out again. He smiled. That's humans for you. We forget things, then we remember them. You lost the ability to create unreal metal, said slowly, and then you recreated it from old books and videos. I guess so. Never thought of it that way. Folded the metal again. Mostly I just like making knives. It's peaceful, you know. You and the fire and the steel. Nothing else matters for a while. Stood in the dusty workshop, surrounded by primitive tools and ancient techniques, and felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt small. Her civilization had built machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level. They had conquered stars and tamed elements and created wonders beyond counting. But they had never produced anyone like a man who could look at glowing metal and see its temperature, who could feel when the layers were right, who made impossible things in a barn behind his farmhouse because he was bored. There are others, she said, like you. Sure, put the metal back in the forge. Thousands, probably, all over the world. We've got clubs, competitions. People share techniques online. Some guys make swords, some make kitchen knives, some make art pieces. Everyone's got their own style. Thousands, whispered. At least, Maya said. She had been quiet, watching her uncle work, but now she spoke up. There are smiths on every continent. Every culture has its own traditions. Japanese, European, Middle Eastern, they all developed their own methods. Some of them are thousands of years old. looked at the glowing metal in the forge, at the old man tending it, at the walls covered in tools that had no right to create miracles. "I need to make a report," she said. Part 3, The Reckoning. The council chamber of the Galactic Metallurgical Institute was vast and ancient, carved from stone that had been old when humanity's ancestors were still learning to walk upright. 12 species sat in tiered seats around a central platform, their representatives silent as Commander presented her findings. She had prepared carefully for this moment. She had brought samples, not just the knife, but other pieces she had collected during her time on Earth. A sword made by a woman in Japan, a decorative blade forged by a teenager in Germany, a set of kitchen knives crafted by a grandfather in Morocco. Each one was different. Each one was impossible. "The molecular structure," she said, gesturing to the holographic display, "shows layer counts ranging from 3,000 to 15,000. The carbide formations follow patterns that our databases cannot identify. By every standard metric, these objects should not exist." She paused to let that sink in. "I have classified them as unreal metal, which, as you know, is a designation I have used only twice before in my 300 years of service." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The delegate leaned forward. "Commander, you are saying that humans have achieved nanoscale molecular manipulation." "No," shook her head. "I am saying something much stranger. They have achieved these results without nanoscale manipulation, without computers, without any technology that we would recognize as advanced. They use fire and hammers and their own hands." Silence. "That is not possible," the delegate said. His voice was flat with disbelief. "The precision required." "I watched it happen." Activated another display, showing footage from his workshop. The council watched as an old man in a leather apron pulled glowing metal from a forge, folded it, hammered it, folded it again. "The smith determines temperature by color. He determines readiness by feel. The technique has been passed down for over 1,000 years." "One smith," the delegate said. "Perhaps he is exceptional, a natural talent." "There are thousands." Changed the display again. Images flashed past, forges in basements and backyards, in rented workshops and converted garages, in professional studios and makeshift shelters. Men and women and children on every continent in every climate, all of them making the same impossible thing. They teach each other freely. They share their knowledge through books and videos. They compete in public events to see who can make the most beautiful patterns. She let the images speak for themselves. "But here is the most remarkable part," she continued. "Humans did not develop this technique recently. They did not discover it as a result of contact with galactic civilization. They created it over 1,000 years ago, long before they had electricity, long before they had any understanding of molecular science. And then they lost it." Lost it. The delegate's confusion was clear. For approximately 200 years, the original Damascus technique was forgotten. The smiths who knew it died without passing on their knowledge. The forges went cold. The method was lost. Paused. And then, using historical records and experimental methods, humans figured it out again. They recreated unreal metal from scratch. The chamber was absolutely silent. "This is the species that wishes to join the artisan caste," said. "Not because they have learned to match our industrial standards, they have barely done that, but because they carry within them a capability that we have lost, perhaps that we never had." She thought of in his workshop, hammering metal by the light of the forge. She thought of the peace in his eyes, the certainty in his hands. She thought of the thousands like him, scattered across a single small planet, making miracles because they enjoyed it. "Our civilization industrialized metallurgy," she said. "We optimized it, we standardized it. We created machines that could do in seconds what once took years, and in doing so, we gained efficiency. But we lost something else." "What did we lose?" the delegate asked quietly. Looked at him. The ability to create without machines, the knowledge that lives in the hands rather than in computers, the patience to spend 3 days making a single knife simply because the pattern is beautiful. She gestured at the samples on the platform. "No would do this. No member of any species in this chamber. We do not forge metal for fun. We do not spend decades mastering skills with no commercial application. We have forgotten how. The chamber remained quiet. Could see the council members looking at each other, processing what she had said, struggling with its implications. Finally, the eldest member of the council, a so old that her scales had faded to silver, spoke. You believe their application should be approved? No, said. I believe their application should be rejected. Surprise rippled through the chamber. The artisan caste is for species that have achieved competence in standard metallurgical techniques, continued. Humans qualify for that barely, but what they have demonstrated goes far beyond competence. It goes beyond mastery. It represents a fundamentally different relationship with the craft, one that we do not have a category for. She took a deep breath. I recommend that we revive the designation of Master Shapers. The silence that followed was profound. The Master Shapers designation had not been used in over 6,000 years. It was a relic from the earliest days of the Institute, when craft was still considered sacred, when the ability to shape matter with one's own hands was honored above all else. No living member of the council had ever used it. That is a significant proposal, the elder said carefully. The responsibilities are substantial. Yes, nodded. Master Shapers are not merely permitted to practice their craft. They are expected to teach, to share their knowledge with other species, to remind the galaxy what it has forgotten. And you believe humans would accept this responsibility? Thought of Maya's smile when she unwrapped the knife. She thought of offering coffee to strangers from another world. She thought of the way he had explained his techniques without hesitation, without concern for trade secrets or competitive advantage, simply because someone had asked. I believe they would be honored, she said, and I believe we would benefit from their teaching. The council voted. The decision was not unanimous. Some delegates argued that it was too great a leap, that more study was needed, that the designation was too ancient to revive. But in the end, the motion passed. Humanity was admitted to the Galactic Metallurgical Institute not as provisional members of the artisan caste, but as Master Shapers, the first new species to hold that title in 6. Sent the notification to Maya personally. The response came 3 days later. It was brief and contained a message from, Tell them thank you. That's real nice of them. Also tell them I just got a new batch of 1095 high-carbon steel, and I've been meaning to try a raindrop pattern. If any of your alien friends want to learn, they're welcome to come by. I've got extra hammers. Read the message twice. Then, for the first time in longer than she could remember, she laughed. She had traveled to 1,000 worlds. She had seen wonders beyond counting. She had spent 300 years believing that her civilization represented the peak of achievement, that there was nothing left to learn from younger species. Now she was considering a trip to Vermont to learn how to use a hammer. Perhaps, she thought, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Not more efficiency, not more optimization, not more machines doing in seconds what once took years, but someone to remind them that there was value in patience, in practice, in the simple joy of creating something beautiful with your own hands. Someone like standing at his forge, watching the color of glowing metal, waiting for the moment when it felt right. The galaxy had forgotten how to make Damascus steel. It had forgotten that such a thing was even possible, but humans remembered. They had always remembered, or if they forgot, they figured it out again. That was what made them different. That was what made them valuable. That was what made them, in their own quiet way, truly remarkable. Started packing for Vermont. The end.